Welcome to Bold Ventures TV, sister show to Bold Ventures Radio, brought to you by Atlantic Sea Island Properties, Org PR LLC, and Cypress Shaw.
Welcome to the program, everyone. I'm Jean Creech, and you're listening to Bold Ventures Radio. This is the show where every week we interview interesting entrepreneurs from all over the country. My guest tonight is John Melonakos, who is the CEO of AccelerEyes. What are the big trends out there, and how does AccelerEyes fit into those trends?
Okay, so the major trends are, really it comes down to the fact that digital data is exploding.
Right.
Video, there are just
Right.
video streaming, that's as resolutions and HD and Blu-ray and all of this stuff, what that really amounts to is that there's way more data, way more bits and bytes that need to be stored, that need to be communicated, and that need to be processed. Now, we're not interested in the storage or the networks, we're interested in the processing.
Just the processing.
Just the processing. And so video is a straightforward one, everyone understands, but you know, people with databases, major corporations, they have an explosion of data.
Right.
People that are looking at biology, they have
Right.
instruments that, just like a camera can get more pixels of information today, so can all the sensors that doctors are using gather more and more data. So this data explosion just means that the software that processes that data has to do it faster and better in order to, make sense of all this data that exists.
And so CPUs are limited though, right?
So CPUs, what has happened is, we all know that they started out in the megahertz,
Sure, yeah.
went to 1 gigahertz, 2 gigahertz, 3 gigahertz, and we've been sitting at 3 gigahertz for a decade now. When you go to Dell or HP and you're trying to customize your computer, it's somewhere in the 3 gigahertz.
Yeah.
It hasn't hit 4 or 5 gigahertz, and the reason is that it cannot go that high, because when you start going to 4 and 5 gigahertz, the amount of energy that's getting pumped through that little chip is so high that the thing gets so hot that it actually starts to melt.
So that's the wall.
That's
3
the wall.
gigahertz.
That's the wall.
So in order for technology to keep up with this data explosion, there had to be some other solution.
Right,
and
right.
y'all found it.
So these video cards, the chip vendors, the people that make these video cards, realized from the outset that CPUs had hit this bottleneck and they needed to find another way forward. And so then they turned their graphics chips into something that could be used generally. They made that open, and now it's software guys like us that are coming in and actually saying, okay, thank you hardware vendors for making that thing open, now let's do a ton of work in making applications that exist today actually be able to leverage that thing. And that's not a trivial problem.
No, it's
that's
not.
an extremely difficult problem.
Yeah, exactly. So tell us, give us a real world example
Right.
of a client, if you can talk about a
Sure,
client,
yeah.
or a real world example of how AccelerEyes is
Right.
working.
So one of our favorite customers is the CDC right here
Yeah.
in Atlanta.
Yeah.
As you can imagine, those scientists, they study outbreaks of certain viruses
Right.
and all sorts of crazy health-related
Around the world.
public
Yeah.
health-related issues.
Right.
And so we latched on to a problem in hepatitis C. And so this particular problem was involved in how do you look at different strains of hepatitis C and sort of map it into the genome of all existing strains. And that's a very complicated computational problem. And we took code that they had that would take 32 days to run,
Wow.
and we made it run in 22 hours.
Wow.
So in fact, these scientists had never been able to run it for 32 days because the probability of a computer staying on and not choking for some reason for 32 days straight is very low, actually.
Thanks for tuning in to Bold Ventures TV, and you've just watched John Melonakos, who is the CEO of AccelerEyes.
Thanks for watching Bold Ventures TV, sister show to Bold Ventures Radio, brought to you by Atlantic Sea Island Properties, Org PR LLC, and Cypress Shaw. Each week, Jean Creech interviews interesting entrepreneurs from around the country. If you have a guest suggestion, send Jean an email at jean@boldventuresprogram.com.